Welcome back, fellow nerds, to Nerd In, or if you're brand new here, thanks for stopping by. I am going to be your host tonight, Christian, and today we're going to talk about why you should play board games. Monopoly and... You listen here! We're only talking about modern board games, the good board games. Let's get into it. So why should you play modern board games exactly? And of course, like in the intro, I'm not talking about stuff like Monopoly and Risk and Sorry and Clue. You can throw all that stuff out the window. That is all of a different age. Modern board games are 12 steps, leagues ahead of any of those games. Modern board games present a much better experience than a lot of those old-time classics like Monopoly and Clue. Those were basically centered around luck, whereas most of your modern board games are going to have a lot of strategy and thinking involved, and overall just be a lot more rewarding rather than randomly punishing. But why do you want to play them? There's so many things out there to do. You can watch movies or play video games. Well, that's exactly why you play board games, because it's not either of those options. It gives you something different to do that's not just sitting around lounging on the couch wasting away. Now, for some of you that may come out of office jobs all day that do a lot of grueling tasks that do involve your brain, I would still challenge you to try out modern board games, where yes, they are going to challenge your brain and provoke thought and make you actually use your brain. It's not in a mind-numbing nature. It's things that will actually activate your neurons and make you have to work through it rather than just filling out paperwork and doing meaningless tasks like that. It's not boring and grueling like a lot of office work. On the flip side, if you're a blue-collar worker like I am, you don't really get a lot of chances to stretch your brain all that much, and we all need excuses to be able to work those muscles and get things moving around up there, clean some of the dust off, let it air out some. And board games do exactly that. While there is a varying range, there's a whole lot of games that are super simple, ranging up to games that are days-spanning games that take hours to just learn how to play. And if you're just starting out, I would obviously avoid the higher-end games. Start with the lower, easier stuff, get familiar with the hobby and the genres, and then work your way up from there. Keeping your brain active is a great way to just keep thoughts flowing, and it tends to make you a lot more coherent. I used to do videos like this all the time, and I struggled a lot. I had very much trouble speaking. Ever since playing board games, I feel like I've gotten a lot more fluent in general, and that's because board games also get you social. Yes, you can get social with things like video games where you're talking in lobbies to people that you don't know, but board games get you that face-to-face interaction that video games rarely ever do, if at all. And it gets you into new spaces, it lets you meet new people, or even just gets you more active with your friends. If you have a friend group that likes to hang out and you really all just do the same thing all the time and it kind of gets stale, board games are a great way to spice that up. There's different varieties. You have smaller group games with more in-depth strategy, you have party games, and no, we're not talking about Cards Against Humanity because that one is a bit outplayed and honestly not that high up at a lot of party game lists. There's so many options out there for unique and different things that will actually provoke thought and interaction between you and your friends. I mean, you might play in Cards Against Humanity, you play a card, you're like, oh, I thought that was funny, why didn't you pick that? And then that's like as far as it goes. But board games in general it gets you more interactive. You're directly doing things with your friends, even in what's known as European-style board games, where you're kind of doing your own thing, but together. It's like multiplayer solitaire. Even then, you're still getting a lot of interaction, because you can be talking through what you're doing, or you know, you're asking questions, or you can even just be chatting while you're playing. It's a great way to just have something to do while you're doing something else. Especially if you get those easier games, they can usually be fairly easy to understand and play, so you can easily just have a conversation about something else completely random while you're playing, but it gets you that face-to-face time with other people, and it gives you plans. Like I said, if you have a friend group that just hangs out and you never really know what to do, you're just kind of milling about, you throw up some YouTube of like TikToks or old Vines on the TV, sure, that could be fun, but after a while it kind of gets old, and you need something a little new. And board games usually will deliver a new experience just about every time that you play them, and that's one of the things I really find fascinating about it. Aside from that, though, it can also get you going to local game stores to play different board games. There's a lot of groups that tend to have open spaces for board games, or local game stores that have game nights where they can showcase different games around the shop. And you are able to go to those and meet new people that are also of the board game mind, or maybe that are new and trying to figure it out themselves, and you can go on that journey together with them. There's so much to explore that you're never going to get through it all, but you can sure try and have a lot of fun with other people along the way. And, sub note, it's also another way to shop and support local, which is always a bonus. If you can find a local game store near you, I'm sure they're going to have a pretty decent board game selection to get you started. But I'm going to do a separate video on finding games for you before you get too far into that, so stay tuned for that video. As well, with board games, it's usually a pretty rewarding time. Even when you get to the end game and you find out that you didn't win, a lot of the times it doesn't feel that bad, because it was the journey to get there that was the intriguing part. That was the enticing part, was actually playing the game. The end game with all the scoring is usually just kind of a fluff piece. If you have people that are playing competitively, yeah, it's important, but if you just play a board game for the sake of having fun, there's a lot of times you can just skip the scoring altogether. But it is also nice to know how well you did, and if you just focus on your score and ignore everyone else, you can just kind of have your own time, have your own like personal record that you try to beat the next time you play, especially if it's a European style game. But there are games that are more direct, and those are referred to as more American games, where it's kind of more you're directly facing your opponents and directly interacting with them rather than interacting with the game around your friends. There's so many different experiences that I could go on for hours about different types of board games and different mechanisms and things like that. So there's plenty of variety for everyone. You will always find a game that someone can appreciate. There is no way that you could go through the entire board game catalog and not find something that someone will like, whether it's based on theme or gameplay or just anything in general. These games offer so much variety, but you can also find a lot of similarities, so if you find a sort of idea that you like, you can stick with that, and then find more things that innovate in new ways on that thing that you like. Again, whether it be theme or mechanism. This type of experience is something that's not that common in a lot of things nowadays. A lot of movies are very cookie cutter, a lot of TV shows are very cookie cutter, a lot of video games are very cookie cutter, and they usually stick to the same type of genres and gameplay. Whereas with board games, there is, like I said, there is an infinite amount of possibilities when it comes to board games, and there's still so much innovation to be done yet in the hobby, but a lot of people said about a decade ago was about the golden age of board games, but I think it's still going to this day. We have so many good games coming out all the time, plenty of things to be excited for, but if you don't want to try to hunt out for those games yourselves, you can look at games that have been around for a while, for like 10 plus years, things like Carcassonne, Castles of Burgundy, games that people rate highly because they've been around so long and they've had time for people to really enjoy them and explore them. You can look at those games to kind of get some reference points as to where to start, and even use that as an excuse to find people to play with. And of course, in with that, you're going to find a lot of those types of games if you find a board game shop or a board game cafe that has a game shelf. They will usually let you try out games for free. Sometimes it might include a purchase, like get a drink or a snack or something like that. You can sit there and play board games and test out new things to see what you like, and then that is another way to also experience the hobby and learn what you like, be able to develop your taste as a board game hobbyist. I ended up going into this blind a couple of years ago, and there are some purchases that I do slightly regret. For the most part, I've had nothing but a great time with every game that I've bought, even if I've only played them a couple of times. Board games as well also don't really care if you have power. As long as you have some form of light source and you can see what you're doing, you can just sit down and still play a game, and it's a lot more entertaining than something like Monopoly or Clue that your family just has tucked away in their basement, rotting away doing nothing. Modern board games are something that can keep coming back and keep surprising and entertaining you. And lastly, board games can fill up different amounts of time depending on what you get. There's pocket-sized games that will literally just fit next to your wallet in your pocket, that you can play on your lunch break and fill up that time. If you're usually just watching YouTube videos or something, you can get something more fulfilling out of just a little pocket game that requires you to think about strategy and form things together. There's a lot of really cool pocket and small box games that you can take with you for things like that. And then there are, once again, games where you can end up filling a whole day or even a few days, or even some campaign games that take weeks to be able to get through, so you always have something that you're able to do. Board games are, again, they have limitless potential for playtime. They have usually so many variabilities within each game that you can just get countless playthroughs of them and really get the value out of each box that you have. But I do recommend being mindful if you're getting games for a group. Be mindful of what everyone likes and how much time everyone might like to spend on something like that. Test the waters a little bit, start with some small games to maybe ease them into it if they're non-gamers, and just see what they think of it and then go from there. There's a lot of wrong ways to go about introducing people to the hobby, but there's a lot of right ways too, and sometimes it's just stumbling along the right way to make it happen. But all in all, I'd say that board games are really nothing but a fun experience. Again, there are so many out there that finding one that you like and that others like as well is... It might be a little hard, but it is going to be out there, and with enough research, you can definitely find it. There's so many people in this hobby, like myself, that are making content all the time, so take a look around, browse, see what type of games you might like, and don't be afraid to explore a new hobby just because it seems daunting and hard to break into, because I promise, it's really not that hard to break into. Maybe finding people to play with from time to time can be a bit of a struggle, which is why I myself like to get games that also include solo modes so that I can play by myself if there's no one else around or if everyone's busy. It's nice to have that flexibility, which is another great thing with board games, is they are so flexible when it comes to that. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. If you're a board game enthusiast like myself and you have other ideas or reasons why people should be getting into the hobby, please leave them down in the comments below. I want this to reach people. I want to get more people in the hobby, because the more that we have, the more people we can play with and learn new games from, which is always just a great time. So let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to have more board game content coming in the future, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing reviews, how to plays, and full playthroughs of different games. So again, stick around for that, and hopefully you enjoy your board game journey if you're new to it, or if you're already in it, I hope it goes well for you. Anyways, thank you guys for stopping by today. As always, we hope you enjoy your stay, and we'll see you next time. Peace.